Reporting season just about coming to a close. We knew it wasn't going to be good. So where did it come in compared to expectations?
I think it's more about where it came in with regards to forward-looking guidance. And what I mean by that is that if we're dead honest, the COVID impact was probably slightly less than what was originally forecasted. And if you look at the forecast from June to basically July, they actually upgraded about 4 times. So that might be the best way to answer that question. It also showed very clearly which sectors are performing and which sectors are going to face unbelievable headwinds for the foreseeable future. It's not just tourism, it's not just aviation. Everybody saw Qantas's numbers yesterday. You actually look at things like banking and what banking's got to go through. You saw it again today with Suncorp and what they told you, 30% decline in overall numbers. It's also because of their insurance arm. But if you look at what the banks are telling you, the deferments that they have on their books, the amount of their customers that they're actually having to look at very, very seriously about going forward. So CommBank is the one on the screen at the moment. They're 8% of their current and total residential loan book is on deferment, is a big risk. And I think that's probably the bigger takeout, is that we need to remember that there is actual business economic underlying risk inside the banking space because of COVID. And that, for me, was the biggest takeout, that you are actually not just seeing it from the economic numbers or listening to the federal government or state governments. You can actually see it in corporates, which are having to deal with basically holding the can to some extent. And I use that slightly lightly with regards to the risk that could come with high unemployment, low job growth, and the fact that we are probably going to be seeing the kind of behaviour the states are currently doing for at least another 12 months.
So is the bigger risk, what you're saying is there's a train coming down this tunnel for the banks in particular. Do you see the bigger risk as housing, or can enough people scramble and hang on to the house through whatever means, or is it business? Because we've seen basically no defaults go on in business, so the usual default rate is pent up, if you like, plus whatever's unleashed by COVID conditions.
I would probably point to the business. Business is the one, if you actually have a look at the numbers from ANZ, Westpac and NAB in their quarterly updates, you do actually see that the business side of their loan deferments are the ones they're probably worried about. They're the ones they actually have to basically expand their what they refer to as doubtful assets. That was actually expanded, and that was mainly due to their corporate side, particularly, as we just alluded to, things like tourism, aviation, infrastructure, they also said is a problem, and then services as well. So they're probably the ones, and the reason for it is that the rates inside corporate lending are higher than housing. So housing is always going to be a risk. Clearly, the individual with regards to having to service a mortgage with possibly no job is certainly there. But the other side of it is corporate debts tend to be larger because the business is obviously borrowing more money than normally to buy a house. They're talking about millions here. And the rate that they're being charged, even with incredibly record low rates across the globe, their rates will be higher because they are basically seen as a risk event. So I'm actually a little bit more worried about corporates, because they're the ones also that are the ones that are going to have to start picking up the slack when JobKeeper, JobSeeker rolls off, and therefore their employees aren't being sort of supported by the government. You do have this possibility that obviously the state borders could still be shut, and their ability to operate, inverted commas, COVID normal, will still be impacted. So they're the ones that are most likely to face the biggest pressure first up. But don't get me wrong, I agree with you, Tom, that housing is an issue, and it's certainly one that I took out of the whole housing issue.